Hello everyone, my name is Hoon-Ki Lee. I am working for Korea Transport Institute. Basically, I studied in Japan and I completed a master and doctor degree in Japan. After that, I was engaged in a private company and I was assigned overseas project in Japan. So I had a chance to participate in overseas project. It was my starting point for overseas project in developing countries. So Korea led transport innovation through advanced policy and technology. So transport, the policy and technology in Korea was acclaimed from other countries, and also Korea experienced Korean War in 1950, and all infrastructure were destroyed. That's why we understand the transport situation of developing countries and the challenges in developing countries. So I'm sure Korea's experience help you mobilize sustainable transport operation in your country. And additionally, I hope this class can help you set up the mid-term and the long-term urban transport plan in your countries. So today's topic is transition of urban transport policies. So before getting into today's topic, I want to share the Korea's transport experience with you through video that I prepared. So the video explained what the KOTI is doing, what KOTI's mission is. So after looking at video, it helps you understand KOTI's role and the KOTI's mission. Okay. So today's the contents is composed of 6 chapters. There have been various urban transport options, but among those, today I want to place priority on public transport policies made in Korea. So first chapter is historic development of urban transport in Korea. So in this chapter, I will explain how urban transport developed and transformed over time. The second chapter is urban bus transit. So I will focus on Seoul bus reform, which was one of crucial measures to improve the use of bus transport. The chapter 3, urban rail transit. So priority will be given on urban high-speed train, namely GTX, Great Train Express, which is scheduled to be constructed in Seoul metropolitan area. So chapter 4, integration of urban transit. Integration of public transport is a core option to convert from private transport to public transport. So some representative options will be explained in this chapter. So chapter 5, socially inclusive and sustainable urban transport. Terms of inclusive and sustainable are becoming topping issues in Korea, even in transport sector. So some examples for those policies will be dealt with in this chapter. Okay, the first chapter is historic development, urban transport in Korea. Here, I will briefly explain how urban transport has been emerged and developed with urbanization progress. This figure shows historic mapping of urban transport development in Korea. In Korea, first modern public transport was tram. It opened and operated in 1899. Following the tram, city bus began to operate in 1928, playing a key role of public transport until the 1960s. As people flocking to Seoul metropolitan area, subway was planned to be constructed and finally opened in 1974. It enabled people to carry many people, and it is functioning as arterial public transport mode even now. Complementing subway's role, Seoul City took into account BRT's introduction and it started its operation in 2004 with bus reform. Recently, GTX high-speed train is becoming top priority in urban transport sector in Seoul metropolitan area. This slide shows the tram operated in the past. So when I was young, I didn't know the tram there was running there in the center of Seoul City because tram's operation stopped in 1969. Actually, the use of tram significantly decreased after city bus began to operate. Bus transport can ensure accessibility so that people tended to use bus transport. Also, the tram lines caused serious traffic congestion because of its slow running speed and the spoiled street appearance. The risk of accidents increased because of missed traffic on street. Consequently, tram disappeared behind history, and now you cannot find the tram anywhere in Korea. But nowadays, it is known as environmentally friendly transport mode, tram. So some cities tried to restore tram system in Korea. This picture illustrates how city buses were operated in the 1970s. I used this kind of bus to go to school when I was a student. So always bus was crowded and operated disorderly. With bus services, related bus regulation began to be established. Due to the legal system, bus industry boomed, creating fierce competition in getting license of operating with financially beneficial bus route. On the other hand, they wanted to avoid non-beneficial route. Therefore, bus service became poor and the bus users cannot satisfied with it. Even worse, passengers' cars dramatically increased, and traffic congestion was worsened, and the bus users had to experience longer journey time. Bus transport was not able to offer enough service to carry millions of people. It was in 1974 the first subway was introduced into Seoul City. Due to the drastic population growth in the city, there were limits to handling the travel demand with bus-oriented transport system. So the city decided to build the subway, and the operational length of the first subway was only 8 kilometers. Tremendous cost was required for the construction, but local governments' owned funds were far from enough. So Japanese loan was utilized to cover the fund shortage. In the 1970s, new town developments were made, and the circular subway line 2, radial subway lines 3 and 4 were decided to be built. As the degree of subway congestion became unreasonably high, it was fully agreed that additional subway lines should be supplied. Currently, we have 10 subway lines being operated in Seoul City with daily use of about 8 million people. Before looking into urban transport situation in Seoul City, I want to look at socioeconomic and the transport status in Korea nationwide. As of 2018, total population amounted to 51 million in Korea, and per capita GDP is recorded at 27,000 US dollar. Over 50 years, socioeconomy has significantly developed, requiring expansion of transport infrastructure. So expressway is operated, and the high-speed railway also began to operate it. So these transport infrastructure will be explained later, more detail. In Korea, the first expressway opened in 1970, connecting capital city, Seoul, and second largest city, Busan. It brought tremendous travel time saving and had a positive impact on the economic growth. With 7x9 express network plan, expressway has been expanded step by step. Now people can access to arterial road within only 30 minutes from everywhere, and their mobility has been remarkably improved due to expressway expansion and the expressway network. Expressway has been perceived a key factor to boost Korea's economic growth. The first high-speed train started to operate in 2004, also connecting capital city and the second largest city. Number of passengers of a high-speed train has been increased due to its fast operation speed. High-speed train absorbed potential demand from road transport and air transport, has contributed to alleviate road traffic congestion and improve air quality. As of 2020, operational length of a high-speed train amounted about more than 700 kilometers. Incheon International Airport began to operate in 2003 It is one of the largest and the busiest airports in the world. Since 2005, it has been rated the best airport worldwide and the world's best international transit airport. With the capacity limitation of Terminal 1, handling capacity was urged to be expanded. And finally, Terminal 2 opened in 2018. Some flights were relocated from Terminal 1 to Terminal 2. Incheon International Airport is playing a crucial role as a hub airport in Asian region. Busan Seaport is known as one of the world's largest container port. Originally, it was a very small port established in 1876. With economic growth, Busan Port continued to grow and became the fifth busiest container port in the world. Annual container traffic exceeded 240 million tons in 2018. About 70% of total exports and imports are handled at Busan Seaport. Okay, let's get back to Seoul metropolitan area again and the urban transport in Seoul City. As I mentioned earlier, the total population of South Korea amounted to 51 million in 2018. Historically, people concentrate into Seoul metropolitan area to seek for job and economic activities. As a result, now about 50% of total population reside in the Seoul metropolitan area. It would be interesting to look at population growth rate. Total population has been increased at a growth rate of 0.5%. In contrast, its growth rate is about 1% in Seoul metropolitan area, meaning twice higher than national average. With significant population growth, tremendous trips take place in this area. Seoul metropolitan area account for only 12% of national territory. However, 80% of total travel demand takes place in Seoul metropolitan area because of overcrowded population in Seoul metropolitan area. It has caused various transport problems, and the measures have been conceived to address those problems. As the country's economy and population grew, urban sprawl followed to accommodate massive housing demand, seeking for relatively cheap housing with reasonable transport access to the center of Seoul. Seoul City experienced extensive suburbanization and sprawl after the 1990s. Urban sprawl in the transport sector caused increased demand for intercity transport. To respond to increasing demand of the intercity transport, related cities competed to provide public transport infrastructure. But administrative boundaries became a constraint in delivering convenient intercity transport. Coordination among related cities was indispensable and became an important challenge. As explained before, bus and urban rail are key public transport modes in Seoul. This figure illustrates how bus and railway network formed to handle transport demand produced among related cities. We need to premier interest in Ambers network in this figure. Ambers is a bus going into Seoul city from adjacent cities or going out to adjacent cities from Seoul. Ambers was introduced to respond to increasing demand of intercity transport and resolve traffic congestion. It can provide more convenient and speedy bus services because it takes exclusive bus lanes and has only 4 stops from departure to arrival. It is evaluated that it contributed to enlarging modal share of public transport. With urban sprawl spreading out furthermore, people wanted to have faster and more punctual transit system in Seoul metropolitan area. To satisfy people's needs, urban rail system has been steadily expanded with circular subway lines, and radial subway lines. Now we have 10 subway lines inside Seoul City and various intercity railways in metropolitan area. Urban rail project promoted after 1990 are heavily depending on central government funds. The rate of subsidy from the central government is 40% for Seoul City and 60% for local cities. Though urban rails have been expanded, citizens had to spend substantial times for traveling between Seoul to adjacent cities. Corridor analysis tells us that trip ratio to Seoul ranges 15 to 30%, and average travel time to Seoul is beyond 1 hour. To reduce travel time of public transport and increase modal share of public transport, high-speed public transport is urged to be built. For this reason, high-speed urban trains operation is under consideration in Seoul metropolitan area. In 2017, modal share of public transport, including urban rail and bus transport, accounts for 64%. Modal share of public transport increased by 5% after implementing bus reform. Bus reform can be evaluated successful in terms of sustainable transport operation. Major features of bus reform will be presented in next time, and bus reform is strongly recommended for a reasonable and effective option toward sustainable transport operation in developing countries. As of 2017, public transport carried about 14 million Seoul citizens. Citizens spend more than 1 hour for traveling. Daily average travel distance of public transport reaches 23 kilometers. People pay about $2 for public transport use. Transport trip rate is recorded at 26%, higher than other countries, mainly because of free transport among public transport modes. So I'd like to close today's lecture and we glanced through today's class, we glanced at how urban transport developed and changed in Korea, and what relationship there interact between urban transport and the transport policy. So next time, I will give priority on bus and the rail policies, and those were evaluated successful. So regarding those with those topic, I will be with you in next time. So thank you for your joining today, and see you next time.